John and Pauline Blakey are organic farmers in Manawatu. They've been involved in an organic sheep and beef farm trial on hill country. We visit their farm at Rewa and look at the results of the work.
We farm 111 hectares in northern Manawatu. Our farm runs along the Rangitikei River. We've got 3 river terraces and we're a diversified farm, not a large farm for this district. Our main part of our business is the certified organic free-range poultry, selling the eggs from that poultry, and to manage the rest of the farm and just to have that mix of diversification, we've got 200 cattle and 500 sheep. I grew up on a farm myself, on a dairy farm, and my dad never used chemicals, never used drenches. In fact, I used to talk to him about what did you do for these problems, and he said we never had that problem. So I thought there's got to be a better way without having to put all those chemicals into our food chain.
We're happy with what we've got. We run a few cattle and sheep with the chooks, and I think because you've got different species here, you're not creating a worm burden problem. One tends to clean up after the other, and it seems, well, it's what we're doing and it seems to be working, so we're not changing it. All the cattle here are certified organic. We run up to about 200 cattle, a lot of Friesian bulls. We have just stopped nurse cows after 30 years and rearing bull calves on them. We have a mob of heifers up on top there that we've just calved, and we'll start to do that once removed calf from heifers. From the chooks as a fertiliser angle, these sheds are movable and we clean up under the shed every 6 weeks, and that goes into a pile and it goes on into a spreader, and we use it for fertiliser to grow our maize, which feeds the chooks. We also use it on grass paddocks, so it's well spread out, so there's free nitrogen here from these chooks. The other thing about the dung situation, you'll very seldom ever find any dung in these paddocks, well, from cattle, because the worm population in the soil is huge.
It's interesting to see that John and Pauline here are using, for instance, delayed weaning in both their sheep and cattle system. There's certainly some science behind that to demonstrate that will reduce the pressure on young stock during that very, very vulnerable period while they're still naive. And they've got that in practice here, and it's an integral part of their system. The chooks is certainly an interesting component within this truly mixed farm system here that John and Pauline have, and the role the chooks play in maybe disrupting, say, the parasite cycle would be a fascinating one to look at, but also the role the chooks play in, well, they get a significant part of their diet from these landscapes, and certainly in that soil biology, their role in eating earthworms and ecotrodes and small beasts. It'd be fascinating to do sort of a balance in terms of what the production per hectare is if you put the eggs, the chooks, the sheep and the cattle and the maize together and stack that alive in some of our conventional systems. That would make for some interesting reading. We set up a unit back in 1987 around the production standards defined by Biogrow at that point. And we actually registered a 20 hectare block here at Ballantrae at that time with Biogrow and went into an annual audit system. In the early 90s, there was increasing interest around it. People came, when they came to Ballantrae to look at other research programs, always were keen to see what was happening on that particular unit. There was concerns that it would essentially fall over. Parasites would be an issue, fly would be an issue, weeds would be an issue, it would struggle to grow out young stock. You know, all the questions that have been raised around organics or an organic system. We established the current trial in 1997, and at that point we created 4 farmlets. We created 2 farmlets managed to organic specifications and 2 farmlets managed under conventional management. And the reason for setting up 2 of each is so we could look at the variation due to factors other than the farm system we'd set up. So all those other factors that are going to influence pasture growth and animal performance that aren't controlled by the farm system we imposed. So we had some measure of the variation that occurs outside the farm systems we set up. The challenge around parasites was with the crossover grazing rotation system we developed between our ewes and then our lambs at weaning, crossing over with cattle. We had a reasonable measure of control over parasites over that summer period. The one we couldn't control around the parasites was the Haemonchus, and particularly a Haemonchus outbreak. We really struggled with that in an organic system. Flies wasn't really an issue here, but certainly we know it is an issue as you go north, and it has been a reason why some haven't converted to organics further north of here. The differences we found between the farmlets were there after about 2 years. And then after that, they never converged or diverged. They just followed along depending on the season. If it was a good year, they were up, and if it was a year that was a bit more challenging environmentally, production was down on both. Firstly, it shows you that you could run an organic sheep and beef system here. It didn't fall over. I mean, parasite levels didn't build up to the point where it was, impossible to manage. As I said earlier, the difference in production is around sort of 15 to 20%, and that was in terms of saleable product. One of the challenges when you do farm system studies is you set them up with protocols at the start, and it'd be nice to actually change some of the management practices during the course of the trial as results come in. But the moment you do that, it makes it more difficult to interpret the differences between systems. So if we were to go on, if we were to continue that work, we would have made some changes to the organic system in recognition of what we'd learned, and we could have actually improved the performance of that system.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.